And good morning.
Good morning.
Oh my God, Jay.
It's been too long.
It has been. They've been clamoring for another one.
Guys, we've tried to do this a couple times and life has just gotten in the way. So,
So here
I'm
we
sorry, but here
are
we are.
on Saturday morning, 6:52 a.m. What better things to do than talk about fantasy baseball, Jay?
Absolutely nothing.
So here, fantasy baseball advocates in the house. Uh, Gosh, guys, we are a third of the way into the year, and so we've got a really good show for you guys set up here. We pulled some rankings of how players have performed, hitters and pitchers, uh, up till now compared to where they were being ranked preseason. And we got some good data to go off of. So, start the show, Jay and I would like to introduce a little bit about ourselves as we spin off more of these podcasts. Our hope is that, we can get some followers from outside the home league that we play in. So a little bit about myself is I'm 39 years old. I'm married with two girls. I'm a nurse. This is something Jay and I have in common. Um, I came to love fantasy baseball in my early to mid 20s. I've been playing this for 16 years now. Um, I I love it with a passion. It's a hobby. Uh, I gotta tell you, the game has grown so much that each year I'm like wrapping my head around any kind of data I can get to better myself. So so as we spin these podcasts, I'd like you to know that we all come from different backgrounds and walks of life, and it's kind of cool for you guys to know just a little bit about who you're listening to. So Jay, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, also 39 years old, 5'8", 187. And I am also a nurse in a hospital, and yes, we have that in common. I've been a nurse since 2016. I also have a wife, have a 12-year-old daughter, 5-year-old son, and so we're both family guys too. And I've been playing the game of fantasy baseball since 2007, and similar to Jason, I have obsessed over it for many years, and the way I look at roster construction, the way I look at players, and just the fantasy baseball landscape. It's never stopped. The learning and growing has never stopped. And today we're gonna share, some of the wisdom that I've learned from my mentors in fantasy baseball. I've got some people that came alongside me and took me under their wing a little bit, and brought me up. And so I'm excited about sharing a little bit of that because, these are like golden nuggets here. I'm a little sad today that I might share, some of these winning strategies and move these other guys ahead.
Well, Jay, we got people out there that are just learning about the game of fantasy
Right,
baseball.
this is for you guys, not for the other guys in my league. This is for all you strangers out there.
These people, they may not know some of the tips. Okay, so let's be frank to start off. Look, Jay and I, most of our expertise comes from playing in head-to-head category leagues. So we know a little bit about Roto, very similar, but these are head-to-head leagues. And again, I say this with the caveat. The data that we give you a lot of may be different in other leagues depending on the format you play in. However, our expertise, our experience is coming from playing in deep leagues. So some of the information we share on this show, if you're playing at a standard 12-teamer or a 10-teamer, you might want to disregard a lot of it because we're going to be talking about players who in some of those leagues weren't drafted and maybe were just available to be picked up on the wire. These guys in this league, we got to look at every stone to be able to leave no stones unturned to try to get an edge. So,
Right.
with that all aside, let's get started. Some winning strategies in this league, you really got to think differently. So, like, something I noticed is a lot of times people can do a stars and scrubs. Uh, Basically, that comes kind of hard the deeper the league you play in. Also, some people like to have a well balanced roster with hitting and pitching. That can go for any format. But what I found to be very beneficial in our format is to really lean heavily on one side of the ball or the other, and then just try to be slightly above average on the other side. So, Jay, I know historically speaking, you lean more hitter heavy, and I would say historically speaking, I probably lean more into pitcher. So, I'm gonna kind of give you some a segue here to talk about your winning strategies, specifically with regards to hitting.
Yeah, so basically, there is there's a hierarchy, right? And the hierarchy goes hitting, starting pitching, and relieving pitching. So in some ways, looking at things in terms of that is a strategy in and of itself. So yes, that's true. I think leaned heavily on hitting. I've always been kind of the Colorado Rockies of my league, right? Just never had the pitching, and when I did very well, and I've gotten better at that over the years. But in terms of hitters, and keep in mind that we use OPS in our league, and that's a very important stat for our league. I think it says a lot about what
For
it.
those for those who may not know, now OPS to some is kind of an ancient stat, which is crazy to think of with the years that we spent it. I remember seeing it for the first time, being like, "What is that?" Can you kind of explain what goes into OPS?
Well, OPS is your on base percentage plus slugging percentage. So, really, it's a very important stat for our league. And how does it translate to success in our league? Well, everything that goes into being a great and powerful hitter, it goes into OPS, right? You've got your on base skills, your ability to take walks, to hit extra base hits. I mean, that to me, it's everything that makes a great and powerful hitter, right? In some ways, and it feeds into every other stat. If you're hitting extra base hits, you're producing counting stats, and you have a better OPS.
It basically
If
gives
you're a
you.
patient hitter,
Yeah, I've noticed over the years, OPS basically gives you a good all around image of the hitter themselves. So if they're more of a contact hitter with less power, if they're just average in the power department, but maybe they excel in the contact, they can still have a decent OPS. And so, in other words, what I'm trying to get at is you don't have to be a monster slugger to have a good OPS. It really equates, like you said, for taking walks, for getting base hits.
right?
Even if you are getting a base knock and you move the runner from first to third or sack flies, yeah, all big parts of the game. Those do contribute to OPS in ways that back in the day when you just standard look at a guy's average, you wouldn't see it on paper.
Yeah, for me, it's part and parcel in how I evaluate a hitter. So, and that leads me into one big winning strategy for me, which is when you're looking at hitters, you are looking for hitters who can contribute in all categories, engaging players by that standard. And not, so what you're doing when you do that is you are not punting any one stat, right? And that is an important part of being winning team is if you can help it, never punt any stat in your league, right? If you want to make a conscious choice to punt one stat or another, right, then you can do that. And So, and I feel like I've had success, with these strategies in the past when it's worked. And this might seem quite obvious when you think about it, right? If you look at the cream of the crop, you look at the very best players in fantasy baseball, they have everything and they have the stolen base potential, right? But, like some other individual stats, stolen bases can be isolated, okay? You can find somebody to help you contribute in stolen bases. And you can find, like you just referred to, people that might be have a very good batting average and score runs, right? And maybe that gets them at the front of their lineup on their team. And that's great that they can contribute to one, two, maybe three stats. But if you focus on getting hitters who can contribute in every stat, your need for those one, two category players should be lessened.
I will say one of the oldest and easiest tricks in the book, and this goes without saying for anything, but like if you hit a home run, you get in a run, a hit, a home run, at least one RBI,
Yes.
and you're getting points in the average and OPS.
Yeah,
So,
those tend to be pretty helpful in fantasy. Yeah.
so
Yeah, they
yes,
do.
the power hitters. God, I know we're breaking script here, but it just popped in my head. Do you think there was ever a better fantasy baseball player than Barry Bonds?
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, chasing power chasing power is one of the old, it can be a trap,
Yeah, but
but
that's
you're
power that's
right. That's
unforeseen. Who's had that kind of power in the last 20 years?
yeah.
That's done it for a full season.
Well,
I'm
and
like,
to go back to OPS, you're talking about a guy who skilled hitter on base and had speed, and then comes the power, right? So you had everything else already, right? You had the ability to get on base, to take walks, to steal bases, and all of that. I mean, I know he wasn't stealing bases.
he was stealing bases in the 90s. He
Yeah, he
wasn't
was.
stealing
A
bases
lot
in
of
the
them.
early 2000s.
No, he wasn't.
All
But
right.
again, that would be stolen bases would be the first thing to go, right? Let's take stolen bases out of it. Look at every other stat, and it's basically the strategy that I'm describing. That they still can contribute in every other stat.
I like that you're hitting on this, Jay. So while we're on the hitting side, not to talk too much about this, um, I noticed that, well, in our home league, not to be specific to any league, but we do play in the same league together. So I have, and Jay is also. We've had bird's eye views how the others construct their rosters over the years, but you've tended over the years to do, and I don't know if you've done this on purpose, but you really tended to do a stars and scrubs approach. And before I ask you about this, I do want to make this a segue into talking about some of the early season successes and failures. So I've noticed that if you do a stars and scrubs approach, i.e., if you through drafting or trading acquire multiple top 5, top 10, top 20 type hitters, and then just use like lesser value hitters to pick up maybe for a couple of to buffer stats, but most of your beef is in those hitters. When those hitters fail, that team really, really disappoints.
Yeah, that's the downside. I mean, and I think what you're seeing and what you're describing is it's the evolution of, we can trade draft picks in our league, okay? And part of what has happened is over the last several seasons, if, like, say for example, last year I was quote unquote tanking, let's call it. Okay, I don't like that word.
Oh man,
I'm a little,
you used a tanking word.
but
It never happens.
right? I mean, did I think that's what I was doing exactly? No, but I was in denial. Okay, but the point is that I traded for a lot of high draft picks, and basically there was a lot of there was only a few picks that I had in the middle of the draft.
No, wait, Jay, before you
then
go on, I think you're leaving something out. So you're talking about how you, quote unquote, tank
Well,
by
what I'm
trading
talking about
for.
is trading for high draft picks, and the
But
middle of the
why?
draft was sort of neglected. It was on purpose. It was done intentionally.
But what I'm saying is, this is a year-to-year process. Why would anybody do that and not want to win? It's because you won 2 years ago, right?
Yes.
So in this essence, you kind of sold out to win, and what you were left with the next year, the cupboard was kind of bare, and you had to
Yes.
restock. And it was
Yes.
either be average for multiple years or
This is true. Yeah.
mail it in so you could be excellent in the next year, right? That's
Yeah.
the goal.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it's not working out yet, but yeah,
Oh,
that's the
okay.
goal. Yeah.
That's all right. Well, let's talk about some of these hitters. Before we get into pitching, let's talk about some of these hitters, early season hitters that have been surprises. So we're using Yahoo's format here, and these rankings are specific to our home league, but these hitters have been successful in all formats. So we're gonna just hit on a few of these guys. Let's talk about, we got Wander Franco, Josh Lowe, Yandy Diaz, Masataka Yoshida, and Nolan Gorman. Now, I'm highlighting these because they pop up as hitters who, some of them were top 100 to top 150 preseason players that are giving us top 20 value right now. Some of them were outside the top 200 and are giving us top 50 value now. So granted, we're only a third of the way in the year. We have enough data to look at trends to see if this is something that can possibly carry over. Obviously, I do want to say with the caveat, 3 of these are raised. So it looks to be, that hint, the deeper the league you are in, the more you might want to watch out for players who play for winning teams. And we'll get into that with pitching here in a minute. But I'm curious to see what you think, because, again, I'm deferring a lot of the hitting to you, Jay. Rest of season, I would say, let's take Wander Franco out of this, because I think you and I both know we loved Wander Franco for a long time. I am not shocked at all that
No.
he's performing the way he's performing. I think people
Really?
buried him too deep, and, he's still, like, in his way early 20s. So
Yeah. Why? What
Yeah.
is the explanation? Why was the ADP, almost 100? There's injuries.
We're not-
just a little bit of spotty performance, really with small sample sizes between injuries. Just things that's really, I think, the only explanation for it.
The manager in our home league is one of the managers that runs the league, and he's been in this for a very long time. Very smart, shrewd move on his part to draft him, because
You and I are both kicking ourselves right now for not drafting this man, Wander Franco.
We both had the chance
Both
to
had the
draft
chance.
him, and we didn't. So hats off to this guy. Anyway, and I'm sure there's a lot of people in a lot of these leagues that
Right.
made
of
that
people.
choice. So let's not be too hard on ourselves. Enjoy the Wander Franco ride. I have a feeling that he's going to be a fantasy mainstay for years to come. But let's focus on the other 4 hitters, because these guys were on people's radars, but I don't think a lot of people thought that they're going to perform like they did. So specifically, Josh Lowe, Yandy Diaz, Masataka Yoshida, and Nolan Gorman. Jay, to kind of like make this short and sweet, give me your rest of season ranking for all 4 of those hitters. I.e., who do you think is going to keep producing? And who do you think is just maybe done some early season success but is going to fall off?
I'm gonna give Masataka Yoshida the benefit of the doubt here and say, that he's a seasoned professional athlete who has now arrived right in the MLB on the Boston Red Sox, and I like him to keep his batting average up to keep that OPS up. And so, I think in terms of consistency, I actually, I'm a little shocked that I'm saying this about someone who's maybe the newest to the MLB, but I think that I like his chances of continuing to consistently contribute to fantasy lineups. Left field is a hard position to field. I think Josh Lowe is still eligible all over the outfield. Correct me if I'm wrong, but
Sorry, not to interrupt, Jay. For those of you wondering, a lot of formats just have OF, outfield eligibility. Some formats actually make you put the player in the actual position they play. So, for example, what Jay's saying is if you play in a league such as the league that we play in where you have to put an outfielder where they play like left field, right field, or center field, they're not eligible. Not all of them are eligible, all three outfield spots. Left field does tend to get kind of tricky once you get past the cream of the crop. So, yeah.
So he's on top of that list. I like him to continue to consistently produce, and we didn't. The Boston Red Sox have had some success, right, on offense and on both sides of the ball that really wasn't probably expected. It was kind of I don't want to say came out of nowhere. It didn't come out of nowhere. It's just that there was some mixed results at first, and then they found some success. So
in those four, you're ranking Yoshida first.
Yeah, and then
Wow.
I'm going Josh Lowe. Josh Lowe is the way I think about him right now is he's the perfect. Let's call him a post-hype prospect, okay? The guy's, he's not really a prospect anymore, but, I am so tired of prospects, real prospects, because they don't help my team at all. So, I am so over prospects. I'm not bitter about it, you can tell, guys. But, I wait on these guys, and then they don't help my team at all, right? And I just have to let them go, and then they go out into the fantasy ether, maybe never to come back to my team if they do start to produce. But Josh Lowe, he's been there. Now he's providing some value on fantasy rosters. He's contributing. Like I said, I think still eligible all over the outfield. Am I right?
He is.
And so he's second on my list because he's sort of finally arrived. Let's say, and there's no more waiting, right? He's helping your team now, and so hang on to him.
Okay, so you got Yoshida first, Josh Lowe second. The other two, we got Yandy Diaz, Noah Gorman. Let's make this quick. Like, where are they, third and fourth?
I'm taking Nolan Gorman third just because the power potential.
Do you think his
where
average
he's eligible? Yeah, the average is. I don't have high hopes for it. Right, I think there's going to be some struggles there. There's going to be ups and downs. There's going to be whatever. Let's call them streaks. I'm not going to call him streaky, but what I'm saying is, if you're going to end the season with 240 something average, there's going to be some ups and downs. There's going to be some offers. There's going to be some bad days. Let's call them. So I like him better than Diaz because the power potential, just the kind of dynamic potential that we are talking about in terms of contributing in all categories. I love Yandy Diaz. I love the batting average. I love the skill, the on-base skills.
I will say, I think you got the bottom of this ranked properly. I do feel like Yandy Diaz is a better real-life player than fantasy player. And this is the first year I felt like, oh my gosh, he's providing fantasy value. Take advantage of right while you can. I'm not so sure it's going to keep up fantasy-wise.
He has always hit the ball so hard, right? And that was
part
of his
profile. He hits it right into the ground.
Well,
that was his issue.
I mean, that was his issue. I think was always his issue was getting him to hit fly balls, right? He's always hit the ball very hard, but and that was always the the prospect view of him was like, can we develop this home run, hitting?
I don't want to say my worry. He's doing great, even when he's not producing fancy numbers. He's a great baseball player.
It's like, should anyone really have ever expected that?
No.
It's good that he hits the ball hard. That's always good.
Yeah, it is. My thing with him is I think a lot of his value this year so far is definitely related to team contact, okay?
Yes.
So So fine, you guys. Yanni Diaz goes and finishes top 25, top 50. You guys can all come to me, and you know I'll eat crow on it. But I think he's gonna drop off in the fantasy world. Just as did that hot American League East race heats up. I don't think the Rays are going to keep up the torrid pace that they've been on. I do think that they're going to make the playoffs and they may
Yeah.
win the division. I just don't think the numbers that a lot of those hitters have been putting up this year are going to continue on the same level. And I think he'll be one. Let's talk a little about pitching. Um, pitching. Oh, yeah, pitching. Okay, so Jay, I've noticed, we've over the years we've had strategies. You go pocket aces. That's a big strategy in a lot of formats. But I've also noticed and some people just go hitter heavy and then get two or three top closers and they just churn and burn through their starting pitchers and just take anything that's credible and they make it work. But I will say the deeper the league you play in, I've learned this the hard way, the more it helps to have volume. And I really feel like volume, even in hitting, but specifically in pitching, is very beneficial the deeper the league you play in. Why? Because even if you don't have the cream of the crop, 5 quality starters are most likely going to overcome 3 elite starters most weeks, given the opportunity. Now, why is this important? You can get volume all throughout your draft and on the wire. And this is what where I'm gonna lean into. Like, okay, so we've been playing this game for 16 years. But we are not experts. We are amateur experts, hoping to be better. Now, we lean into a lot of data and stats given to us from credible sources. I will say I lean heavily into pitcher list in the last couple of years. I lean heavily into listening to the CBS Fantasy Baseball Today podcast. I try to get information in the off season from so many different sources. Fantrax is one of them. Fangraphs. All of these sort of platforms have great expert advice, and sometimes. Oh, and then, have you ever seen the oh my gosh, it's the words are leaving my mouth. The steamer projections before the season starts, and then also Ariel Cohen's
I look at
numbers.
projections a lot. I mean, I look at the compilations of them.
Yeah.
I mean, it tells you something for sure.
It does. So those are numbers that are given to us by experts early on. But what I found to be helpful is to use those as like a guideline to say, okay, these guys should be on your radar. And then throughout the season, you have to hone in on a few of them because let's be honest, we're family people. Most of us don't have enough time to consume enough fantasy baseball knowledge to really not miss. You're gonna hit on some, you're gonna miss on some. So
Sure.
what I'm getting at is if you've got a pitcher who can play on a winning team, hint hint, pitchers on winning teams, they're more than likely gonna acquire wins, which is a team stat. You can have the best pitchers in the world, but a win is a team stat, and if his defense doesn't back him up, or if he gives up a little bit and the other pitcher's better, he's not getting the win. So you can steal wins by getting pitchers who just play on really good teams, even if they're just quality middle of the rotation pitchers. The deeper the league you play in, the more valuable those guys become. I've come to find that and every league is different, but there comes a point where you realize you need X amount of starting pitching to really help get through the year. I unfortunately a couple years ago went all in and I thought I had it. And my biggest shortfall wasn't the hitters I acquired. It was the fact that I had Garrett Cole as my ace and my second best pitcher after, oh, we're not going to talk about Trevor Bauer. But anyway, after what he pulled, and he was very quickly jettisoned off my team after that, was Marco Gonzalez. I mean, in a deep league, it gets really scary. So you need to have young pitchers, veterans who may be underdrafted. You need to have these guys on your radar. And I've learned from these credible sources that the time to pick them up and to let them shine is April and May. Because if you wait until June or after to start building your staff for the stretch run, you've waited too long. And I've learned this the hard way by playing, and I've learned this by looking at advice. What I found is that in April and May, you have to have maybe 3 starters you drafted that you're going to keep, but you are just churning and burning. That's the quote Nick Pollock from Pitcher List, but some other people too. You're going through pitchers on the bottom. Let's face it, we're always going to shuffle up the bottom third of our roster, right?
Yes.
Especially in a deep league. So some people are really good drafters. It may just be the bottom fifth. But anyway, you're going to be shuffling through players. You got to find those pitchers in April and May. And you're going to find pitchers every year historically that are ranked 250 or beyond that have potential Cy Young seasons or at least potential league winning seasons because they perform way above their average projected value to start the year. And then I've learned after you've got that settled, you've got to make sure you have enough depth. Then you start working on your bench. And you do that in basically June. And the hope is that by the time July rolls around and we're about mid-season, you've got your stable of pitchers and your bench. So then all you're doing is waiting up injuries.
Yeah.
And just managing your roster at that point. And continue to watch, because, August, September, you get those call-ups. But now with the new rules promoting call-ups early, these prospects are coming up earlier than they used to.
Yes.
I'm going to go offline here, and I'm still disappointed in the Baltimore Orioles for not calling out Jordan Westburg. I totally feel like there's a little bit of super team manipulation going on there, but that's just my opinion. I'm sure it's some other people's opinions too, but we'll get to that.
Yeah, I mean, the time is now for the Orioles, right?
Yes. Maybe that's why they haven't called him up, because they're winning all this kind of, but I just,
right.
I can't get past
keep people
Jorge Materia
healthy,
hitting sub 200, and then Cedric Mullins gets hurt, and you easily have an opening to add a top prospect who's hitting amazing.
Right.
I'm sorry, guys. I'm going off on a tangent here. Yes, I'm the proud owner of Jordan Westbury.
We could talk about stuff like that all day. I mean,
yeah, but we can't do that for this show. So for the concept, to make my point, to drive my point home, is volume and starting pitching in deep league is so imperative. And you need to look to acquire 3 to 4 starters in April and May who are performing, because those are the guys that are going to win your leagues in the end. And you also need to make sure that you have enough starting pitchers to, when you get hurt, when your guys get hurt, you're not back down to the level playing field of the rest of your league, because injuries are going to happen. So that's why I say volume. But you don't want the volume in the sense of, I've got 3 good pitchers and I'm streaming pitchers every day. That's not the volume you want. So I think I've talked enough about this. There's something to be said for winning strategies in deep leagues on the hitting side and on the pitching side.
You've hit on so many things.
Yes, I have. Is there a few things that you wanted to?
Yes, I agree with you pretty much completely. I mean, you've hit on a couple things, which is like having a complete and balanced roster on week one and having a functioning rotation. It is a strategy, and it's a I think it could be a winning strategy. I think that a few years ago when I won it all, part of why I did so well throughout the regular season was because I started the season with bunch of guys like Hyunjin Ryu, Kyle Hendricks, who provided consistently for me starting pitching stats throughout the most of the season, the vast majority of the season. Now, they weren't there for me down the stretch. And that's another point you basically brought up, that you need guys to contribute early, and many times the guys who get you there to the playoffs are not the guys who will win you the championship. And you have to keep churning and burning, as you say. You have to keep getting contributions from people. And so if your roster has gone stale, you've got to wake up, you've got to make moves, and you've got to and you hit on playing for good winning teams, and that is, if you're going to chase wins, right? Let's call it chasing. Let's say I need wins and I need strikeouts. Well, yes, you should probably look for guys on good teams, because I don't know how else to tell you to chase wins other than just looking at guys who consistently have quality starts, right, and wins. They can go deep into games. Marco Gonzalez, you mentioned that name, quality start machine.
Not
right?
this year,
When
but
he's running
the
good.
last
Not this year.
3 years.
Soft tossing, right? The
By the way, I'm
strikeout.
sorry you brought out this the segue. Anybody in deep leagues that knows the name Brian Wu, he's making his debut today. Um, I he The Seattle Mariners have aggressively promoted their young pitchers, and I'm so excited. Not a Mariners fan here, but I guess I am this year. I got oh my god, I can't even. I'm so excited to see how some of this stuff goes,
And, pitchers who contribute in all categories is essentially the same philosophy. At the top of my rotation, I've got guys who can basically, their ERA and whip are good. They can provide you wins and quality starts. They basically contribute all over the board. You have hit on the fact that the trend now is, I feel, more starting pitching volume is very important right now. Over the last few years, we have seen the emergence of great relievers with great peripherals, great ERA, great whip, strikeouts, high strikeout rates. Those guys became extremely valuable,
but they're
extremely
not all
important.
traditional closers.
No, they're
either.
not. But that also means that we play in a saves and holds league, so those guys can get you wins, they can get you holds, they can get you saves, and they have great ratios. So they're contributing in almost every category, right? We're just leaving quality starts out, basically. So, but you are
for
right.
those of you who don't know, we also play in a quality start league, so
Right.
it's kind of an archaic stat. I enjoy it, but it's the traditional. Your starting pitcher starts the game and pitches 6 innings of 3 earned runs or less, which really isn't asking a whole lot, but it kind of
It's a threshold now that most people don't go over
exactly.
6. Pitching 6 innings now is, if you, and even going into the MLB playoffs, if you got a guy who can get you 6 innings, you are not going to see very many starting pitchers go past 6 innings, even in the biggest stage, right? So
Okay, so we talked about a lot of strategies here, hitting and pitching. To kind of put a little wrap on today's show. for our home league purposes, I want to give a shout out to a couple of owners so far this year. I'm not giving you an award. I'm giving you a pat on the back for where you're at. But let's give it up for Redbird. Redbird Nation has earned some props. This guy came into the league. He played in a public league with me for a while, and he came in the league a couple of years ago. And oh my gosh, he's built an incredible offense through patience of trades, and he has a very good pitching staff that I feel like it's underrated. He's definitely got some volume, but I mean, when I look at his team, he drafted Acuna, he's got Luis Robert, he's got Eloy Jimenez, and he's just got
Through a fault of
Randy
my own.
Arozarena.
Yeah.
So his across the outfield and in his DH
Eloy
is
Jimenez.
so like powerful.
Yeah.
And then you look at Nolan Gorman's exceeding expectations at second base. Now, he's got the potential for some fall off there, but he's done really well for himself, and I've got to give him props. Like, he's built an offense that's looking very scary, one that I don't want to, but I've got to face 3 times down the stretch run. How about you, Jay? Do you want to give props to anybody in the league?
I mean, to go back to your division, let's look at 108 stitches. What's his regular season record going into this week? 71-49. You know, I mean, I don't know if he can keep this up, but what he's doing right now is great. So, and he's got, right now he's got Jazz Chisholm and Tyro Estrada on the IL. So, I mean, if he can get his guys healthy, he can keep this up, you know, and maybe make the playoffs and try to get a top 4 finish. Last year he was all about the side pots, and I think now he's in it to win it. And I can't remember if I called him a contender or pretender at the beginning of the season, but right now he's contending for the division with you guys. So props to him.
Stitches is doing a really, really good job all around hitting and pitching. This division is going to be so hard, and you know unfortunately, those 2 teams we just talked about.
And if
I've got to
Xander
play
Bogaerts gets back
quite a few
to
times.
You know, if
yeah,
he gets
see, that's
Xander
the thing for a
Bogaerts
lot of
performing
teams.
at a
We're a
high
third of the
level.
way into the year. So there's people above expectations and people below expectations. So we should do another trade. Sorry, another trade. I trade a lot. You do too, Jay. So we should do another show where
I
we
trade
talk
a lot
about,
more since you came into my life.
Oh, that warmed my
I've always
heart
been
up.
very conservative, but
Thanks, man.
you have opened my eyes to a lot of things over the years. So
Well, I know it's not just me, just being a good friend, man. But thanks, that means a lot.
getting better through trades is not that simple or easy, is it? But
Okay, so I gotta give props to one more team. Okay, so, and there's a few teams that deserve props, but I want to say I'm very impressed with Isotopes. Now, this is going to come with a caveat here. Isotopes is a game below 500, so technically speaking, he's not having the best of season, but he had probably the worst looking appearance of hitting keepers on paper coming into the year. He was depleted of draft stock. He didn't have much to go for. And the players he had Bryce Harper, who was looking like he was going to be on the IL for 3 months, who came back early, by the way. He's leading his division a third of the way into the year, and I don't think any of us saw that coming. So I don't know if it's going to keep up. It could, it may not, but I'm going to give him prop where props is due. When you play in a deep league, no matter your record, if you can be leading your division a third of the way into the year, you're doing pretty good. So good job, Isotopes. Yeah. Anybody else you want to share before we wrap this up?
I don't know. I mean, the league is so much has happened, right? Since we started the season. So, um, props to Pappy McPoyle for
Happy.
changing your
Wow.
for rebranding your team and going into full rebuild mode. Thank you for hopefully giving me an inroad to winning the division here. And let's make more trades.
Let's
Let's.
do this. So we're gonna wrap this up. I'm gonna be a little selfish here for you guys. I want to point this out. This goes for anybody, not just our home league. So I'm no, I'm not vouching for people to do this if you have good ratios, but I've had a really bad week with my ratios, but I'm doing okay in my other categories. So I'm throwing 3 starters out there. They're not starters who I just like picked up just to throw. They're starters who have picked up to have volume and to assess over a few starts to see how they do, because I do think they have qualities to them that can make them a good pitcher down the stretch run. And these starters today are Luis Ortiz of the Pirates, Michael Grove for the Dodgers, and Brian Wu, a 23-year-old just recently promoted from Double A. Now, the name that was losing me because it's so early in the morning was Bryce Miller. Gosh, have you seen Bryce Miller pitch?
I have not.
Oh, it's a treat. Now look, he's gonna get hit, and he got hit by the Yankees. But maybe the Mariners are onto something, aggressively promoting their prospect from Double A. I'm throwing these 3 names out there because I want you guys, anybody out there listening, to watch them.
I watched Ortiz's start, and we
Okay.
talked about him a little bit a few days ago. And, like you said, assessing over a few starts, I think that's exactly what the Pirates are doing right now.
Well,
They.
Velasquez just got hurt again.
Right,
So
right.
Ortiz, as long as he treads water,
Yeah.
he may be in there for the
Yeah.
stretch
Yeah.
run.
Contreras, Razny Contreras was taken out of the rotation for a little while. He just made another start. So, I mean, is he back in now that Vince Velasquez is set back? Maybe. But yeah, Ortiz. So now Ortiz, has an opportunity. Like I told you, I liked what I saw. He walked some guys, but he was making competitive pitches. They weren't that far off. He wasn't wild, and I really like that. And you talked about ratios. I've been terrible. Mine have been terrible. I was talking about people contributing in all these categories. My ratios have been terrible, so I haven't been able to do any of that. Julio Urias, the guy, his pitches, he is like, when he is not doing well, what I've seen, his pitches are catching just too much of the plate. And so I'm okay with that. I can wait and watch him kind of get into midseason form, right? Get back into shape, start making
Well, see,
quality
that's the
starts.
thing. To wrap this up, you're bringing my point home. You got to have your anchors who you can give a little bit of leash to, but you
Absolutely.
want to be able to watch these young guys because these are the guys that can contribute to the volume,
And I
and these
failed
are
to
the
do this,
guys.
Jason. I
It's
really am
okay.
behind right now.
I
I
have
am.
to. These are the guys that you want to be able to pick up off the waiver wire in April and May, because if they turn into something, they were free. Um,
This is
I
why I'm buried in the standings
No,
right now.
it's
Is because
okay.
I haven't been able to do
I'm
this.
getting
You're so
value
right.
vibes here. So here's the thing. This isn't something I've always done. I'm trying this new this year. I'm trying really hard to do this. And I got to get props to a couple of owners in our league who have preached losing value through trades over the years. Trades are a big part of my game, but picking these guys up off the wire in April and May and watching them succeed is value. So to wrap this show up, I know you want to say one thing, Jay. We'll let you go there. Watch these young pitchers today. 2 of them are probably going to flop, but you know what? One of them might succeed.
It could be true for hitting, but especially for pitching as well. You're talking about picking up guys off the free agent market, right? And them becoming, I mean, not, they could become full on stars, right? And like, there's been guys in the past where, a few years ago, I picked up Carlos Rodon. He went undrafted. The guy went undrafted, and his is because of injuries, really, that he never really. I mean, we got to see him pitch, and his stats were kind of middling. We always knew the strikeout potential was there, and then he became a full on star. Obviously, now he's dealing with injuries again. But my point is, there is so much value in what you're saying. You've got to pick these guys up off the free agent market, and just to go back to winning strategies. And I could bring that hierarchy back in, right, of hitting, starting, pitching, relieving, just sort of hitting over pitching. I mean, but Jake famously, right, has kind of said he was able to win the league with a pitching staff that he put together basically at the last minute or through the free agent market. So, I mean, this is doable. But if you don't have the hitting,
you have to.
I don't know if you can do that.
All right, Jay. So, we're going to sign off like that. You have a good point. So that you have to have the hitting.
Right.
But you agree the volume and pitching matters.
Oh, absolutely.
So then to go to the way I started the show off, if you are excelling in one side of the ball, whether it be hitting or pitching, you want to be average, maybe slightly above average, and the other side. So that's kind of our point today is for deep league winning strategies. Try to excel in some areas, but just not be just be above average in other areas, and then continuously monitor the wire. Do you have any last minute advice before you sign off?
We got to talk about winning strategies again a little bit on our next podcast.
Absolutely, Jay.
There's more to talk about here in terms of drafting, roster construction, and peaking over the course of the season. Building, your team being in flux over the course of the season.
Absolutely, we will, because we're going to do more of these on Saturday mornings.
Absolutely.
So, for all of you out there listening, thank you so much. I'm Jason.
I'm Jay.
And these are the Fantasy Baseball Advocates signing off.
Be well.
Take care.